All right, good morning, everybody. It is about 8:15, 8:20 on Thursday, July 9th. We are headed to work. It's already really hot today. But it feels good. So I'm just going to take 7th Avenue all the way down. This is, of course, Times Square. I've kind of been enjoying taking the streets to work as opposed to going down the West Side Highway. I feel like you just see a little bit more. Okay, what to talk about? So, let's see. We are here in New York. We are in week 2 of phase 3 of our 4-phase reopening. So all that phase 3 is basically added some more businesses that could reopen, and mostly like personal care businesses. So like nail salons, spas. Of course, they do have to, just like everybody else, follow all the precautions. So like 50% capacity, social distancing and where possible, and if not, masks, and that sort of thing. Phase 3 was also supposed to include indoor dining, but they held off on that piece because data, of course, is suggesting that when people are inside, in indoor settings, without masks, and talking loudly, and drinking, and eating, that it's much more possible to spread the disease, spread the virus. So it just makes sense. So for all the bars and restaurants, there is still no indoor dining at all. But they've really gone pretty strong on all of the outdoor dining and seating, and even like standing tables for bars. So, you go like all around the city, and you see not only sidewalks being, good portions of sidewalks being taken for table setup, but also a lot of in the street, the parking spaces. So it's actually kind of cool, kind of nice. There wasn't much of that before. There really wasn't a lot of sidewalk dining in New York before. I mean, a few places here and there, maybe some places in Soho, but it really wasn't, very common. And now you kind of like see it all over in all these different neighborhoods. So it's kind of a different way to dine out in New York right now. Kind of nice. But anyway, so that's where we're at. And beyond that, I did get tested for a second time. So when I first moved back to the city from upstate in the middle of May, one of the first things I did was go get tested. And I got tested for the antibodies, and which is a viral test. It's a blood sample. And I got my swab test done, the diagnostic test, which is are you currently infected with the virus? So in mid-May, my results came back that I was positive for antibodies, negative for diagnostic. So suggesting that at least 2 weeks prior to my testing, I had the virus. Now, that's very unlikely that it was 2 weeks before, because I was isolated in upstate for a couple of months, from the middle of March to the middle of May. So it's much more possible that I contracted it in March, certainly possible February, but my guess is it's probably sometime in March. Okay, so let's assume that I had the virus in March. Go get tested in the middle of May. A couple of months later, positive for antibodies. Fast forward to just last week, I went and I got tested again, both for antibodies and for the diagnostic. Just got my results yesterday morning, which that in itself is a big issue, because I got tested on Monday of last week, and I just got my test results yesterday, Wednesday of this week. So that's almost 9 days, but 8 full days. So that's a problem. But anyways, so the results came back, and lo and behold, I no longer test positive for antibodies. I was also negative on my diagnostic, so I don't currently have it, or at least as of last week, Monday, I don't have it. But, that was interesting. So when I got those results, I was like, okay, that's strange. Now, there have been all these reports. I think there was a study that came out of Spain that was suggesting that antibodies potentially only are lasting for just a few months. I think there were reports of this that were starting about a month ago. So I called and I wanted to talk to somebody about my results. So they connected me with one of their people, and I was told that, well, because for starters, I asked, I was like, well, what is the likelihood, or what are the chances that my first antibody test back in May was a false positive. And I was told that it's actually pretty unlikely. They seem to be very confident in their testing. So okay, unlikely that the first result was a false positive. So, but she did tell me that they are starting to see more and more cases like this, where people are coming back to get tested and the antibodies are no longer showing up when they did before in previous testing. So, I mean, if we back up, for starters, nobody was even certain, like, if you had antibodies, that would just, like, made you immune. It was never a guarantee. It's probably that way, considering most other viruses, including other coronaviruses, work that way. So that's probably the case. Also, of all of these cases that we've had, I have not heard one documented case where somebody has gotten reinfected. I feel like at this point we probably would have heard that by now. But I don't know. Either way. So let's also just pretend that, sure, antibodies, make you immune. For argument's sake, let's just assume that, even though we don't actually know that. Great, well, if they only last a couple of months, that means you're only immune for a couple of months, under that logic. Also, that's what essentially vaccines do, right? So when you get a vaccine, I'm not a human biologist, I'm not a scientist, but from what I understand, when you get a vaccine, you're essentially injecting yourself with a strain of the virus or whatever in order to create antibodies. So, but in this case, if you did that and the antibodies only last in your system for a few months, I don't know if does that mean that you would have to get a vaccine like every couple of months? I don't know how this works. And I was trying to find some literature on it, but I couldn't find anything, so I don't know. But there's also a possibility that you actually do still carry antibodies. It's just that they're at such low levels that the testing can't pick them up. That's also possible, but not proven, so you can't go based off that as fact. But yeah, so now my plan is to basically get tested regularly. I had been using CityMD, which is this like chain of urgent cares that are located all throughout the city. But I think what I'm gonna do on the next, I think I'm gonna get tested like once a week. I feel like that sounds like a good plan. Anyways, instead of going to CityMD, I'm going to use one of the state's testing sites to see what that experience is like. Perhaps they have a quicker turnaround. I'm not sure. But this whole thing with the test results coming back, even if it was 6 days, but in my case it was 8 days. I mean, it's just like, that's... If I would have tested positive, that would have meant at best, I was about halfway through the lifespan of the virus. And at worst, I would have already been out of my system, and I spent all this time not isolating myself. So it just, that's gotta be fixed. The problem is because there's this rise of cases all across the country, and a lot of these states did not use all of these last months to set up testing like we set up testing here in New York. So now they're relying on the national labs, which I'm pretty sure CityMD uses the national labs. They're not one of the state ones. So the last time I got tested with them, my results, I came back in 3 days, which that was great. But now, because they're so inundated with all of these other tests from all around the country, their turnaround time has like doubled. So yeah, here we are, what, 4 months later into this fucking thing, and we're still talking about we don't have testing capacity in this country. I mean, it's very frustrating to even think about. But it is what it is. That's where we're at. Also in New York, I think I mentioned before, we have travel restrictions in place for certain states. A couple of weeks ago, it started off with just like 8 or 9 states. Last week, that got increased to 16 states. Now, this week, we're at total 19 states. So if you're coming from one of these 19 states to New York, it is mandatory for you to quarantine for 14 days. So you cannot come into our streets, you can't go to our grocery stores, to our restaurants, to our offices. You literally have to be like in your hotel room, or if you have an apartment here, in your apartment, and like locked in your apartment. So that's happening. So I don't know which one this is. This is World Trade is this one. There's one. This must be, I didn't realize this was already under construction. I think this is 2. Yeah, World Trade Center 2. I don't know what that's going to... I don't know how tall that one's going to be, but... Thank you. So this is the Memorial World Trade. These are the pools. This is the September 11th Memorial Museum, which I've never actually been in. I need to do that. Here's the other pool, the South Tower pool. These are really stunning. The water just falls in, and then there's like a centerpiece. You can't see all the way down. Wall Street. Should we go down Wall Street? Can we go down Wall Street? Sure we can. Let's go down Wall Street. Just have to be up on the sidewalk for a minute. New York Stock Exchange, Federal Hall, cute dog. All right, and we're at work. Fun ride. Thanks for riding along. Here. And stay safe, wear a mask, get tested, save lives, and I'll talk to you guys later. All right.